Hello friends, welcome back to another video and welcome to the channel where for the entire month of June we will be focusing on queer authors for Pride Month. And today's video is the whole reason that I wanted to do this in the first place. This is the book that inspired me to even do this, because I knew that when I started reading it, I would want to document the entire process. Today we are going to be reading Felix Ever After by Kacen Callender. I cannot tell you how excited I am to read this. It's currently 11 p.m. I'm still uploading today's video and I'm already thinking about how much I want to read this. I'm in the mood to read young adult and I'm in the mood to read something that I can get through quickly but that I'll probably relate to in more ways than I want to acknowledge. I wanted to sit down and read this before I even bought it. I wanted to sit down in the Barnes & Noble cafe and sit and read through the whole thing, but I decided to put it off so that I could do a video, and we've made it. I guess I should probably say what this book is even about. Felix Love has never been in love, and yes, he's painfully aware of the irony. He desperately wants to know what it's like and why it seems so easy for everyone but him to find someone. What's worse is that, even though he's proud of his identity, Felix also secretly fears that he's one marginalization too many, Black, queer, and trans, to ever get his own happily ever after. When an anonymous student begins sending him transphobic messages after publicly posting Felix's dead name alongside images of him before he transitioned, Felix comes up with a plan for revenge. What he didn't count on, his catfish scenario landing him in a quasi-love triangle. As he navigates his complicated feelings, Felix begins a journey of questioning and self-discovery that help him redefine the most important relationship, how he feels about himself. I'll be completely honest, I did pick it up entirely because of the cover. I think that is so gorgeous. This book came out in 2020, and also I forgot to mention the author is Black, trans, and uses he, they pronouns. I am so excited to read this. I'm gonna read the first chapter or two, get a feel for it, and then I'll come back and tell you what the vibes are. And also I want to make it very clear this video is going to be full spoilers. I'm gonna talk about anything that happens in this book because otherwise I will combust. Okay, cool. I'll see you then. Happy birthday, King. For whatever reason, Dan Howell's birthday has been ingrained in my head since like 7th grade. I have never missed it. Every year, the second it turns midnight, I know. I look in the mirror and I get the lightest shadow of cat whiskers on my face, and it all comes back to me. It's been a little bit. I'm 15 pages through, and I can already tell I'm gonna be invested in the characters. Which I'll be the first to admit, I definitely am somebody who judges a book by its cover. I feel like there are times where I'll convince myself that I should like a book because I think it looks cool and I want to be somebody who says, yeah, I like this book, and I can be proud that I like it because when you just look at it, it looks like a cool thing to like. I'm literally bald. Do you see all that? From page 1, you immediately get a clear sense of who these characters are going to be and how they act. They're very confident in their queer selves. From page 1, you know that they are gay, or at least that they'll pretend to be if it makes old men uncomfortable. Felix just turned 17, they're in New York, they're getting high, they're getting ready for college. They do curse a lot, which is something that I criticized. I think it was in One Last Stop, but it took me out, and I said that it felt like it was lazy writing because the characters just weren't really saying anything. They were just cursing and then moving through the conversation. With this, it feels a lot more fitting because they're 17, they're teenage guys. In One Last Stop, the main lady is 23. It immediately sets the tone, both with how the characters are interacting and how they're talking. You can tell it's going to be a little bit fun, it's going to be a little bit lighthearted, but it's also going to talk about some serious issues because it establishes that they're queer, and it also establishes that they are people of color who go through different struggles, how they feel invisible in public spaces, they feel completely ignored. So right away, we're already getting into that. But from the introduction of the story, it's just rich best friend who's kind of got his life sorted. He's not really going to go to college, he doesn't really need to worry about anything, and then Felix, who's struggling to get by, he's got average grades. I think it's a really strong start. You already get the idea that Felix is really confident, or at least he wants to look like he is, and I'm interested to see how that's gonna change over the course of this book, because I'm assuming it will. When somebody is attacking a personal thing like that, your confidence is gonna dip a little bit. I was just about to go to bed, but this genuinely made my jaw drop. Felix went out with one of the girls from their little school group for a little while, but she had said something that was offensive and they hadn't talked since. And then it reveals what she said. And she said, "I know why I'm not interested in you, I just don't think I can date a misogynist." And he asked why he is. And she said, well, you deciding to be a guy instead of a girl feels inherently misogynistic. You can't be a feminist and decide you don't want to be a woman anymore. And then half a page later, he walks into school and all of his old Instagram pictures that he has privated of before he transitioned are printed all over the school. Now his best friend walks into a building that's got pre-transition pictures all over it. He hadn't even said his dead name to his closest friend, and somehow whoever put these pictures up had it posted. I guess the assumption is that it's either the guy that doesn't like him, or the girlfriend that doesn't like him, or that it could be Ezra just being cruel, because those are the only people that you've really met so far. And of course, Felix follows the same thought process that I had about how it's probably one of these characters that we were just introduced to. He immediately thinks that Declan, the mean one, is the guy that set up all these pictures. But also, Declan and Ezra, the best friend, dated for 7 months. He lost control of his identity. He lost control of this one thing that was his, which is just himself. Somebody else, by putting out these pictures, found a way to label him and to put him in a box that he didn't want other people knowing. And in doing that, they took away control of his identity from himself. So even if Declan isn't responsible, he's going all in on revenge mode, figuring out how he could blackmail him or try to get some secret out of him that he can ruin his life with. When you are dealing with people who are questioning your identity, it's pretty fair to take extreme measures to try and protect it. And I also love that as the reader, you don't get to know his dead name because the impact matters more than the information. I really need to go to bed. His dad said, hey, why don't you come back over here, spend more time with me? And once Felix got home, he said, I just don't like you spending all that time with a guy. The type of thing that you would say to your little girl, where they're not allowed to spend the night with a guy because they could be doing stuff. And his dad argues throughout the book that he's trying his best to accept the transition. He's the one that helped pay for all of his surgery and his hormones and everything like that. But at the same time, he can't even say Felix's name. And it just layers on top of this whole thing of questioning his identity and questioning if he's really a guy. It's such a real experience, though. There are so many people that have to go through similar experiences. I'm pretty lucky in that my family is entirely accepting of anything that me or my brother choose to identify with, but it would suck so bad to have to live like this. To not have that support from the people that are supposed to be there for you no matter what. I just hit the 100-page mark, so let's talk about what's happened. I'm gonna try to keep it brief because I've been recording way more for this video than I have for any of the other ones, and it's gonna be a nightmare to edit. He ends up getting distracted by his revenge plan. He's not even focused on his portfolio or anything, but I feel like that's gonna tie around and that's gonna be what the love triangle is, because their 2 Instagram accounts just said that they both want love, but Declan doesn't know that it's Felix. I really love so far how the queer friend group is portrayed. I feel like the interactions are so realistic. The conversations sometimes feel a little bit textbook, like the ways that they validate each other very much feel like word for word, here is what you should say to somebody. I think if you relate to the characters and you relate to their identities, it would be really comforting to read that, even if it is a little bit basic and boring and it's not the way that people actually talk. I wrote, it's giving enemies to lovers if Declan and Felix end up getting together. And I also just wanted to shout out, if you go onto Kacen's website, he has a section where he talks about edits that were made to this book. I just respect this author so much for going out of their way to listen to other people that said, hey, by the way, this is just a little bit off. I'm gonna link their website in the description, but genuinely that just made my heart so happy. I saw that when I first bought the book and it made me so much more excited to read it. I feel so good about supporting an author who is like that. I'm gonna try my very hardest to not update just because I'm trying to edit this by tomorrow. So I'm just gonna move through it as much as I can. I'll keep notes and then I'll update you guys if something really, really big happens. But for my own sanity, we need to cut this video down. She said, so calling me out in front of everyone is your idea of loving and respecting women?
Bro, what a piece of shit.
You don't have to respect every single woman.
This woman in particular. Oh. I guess we'll
you
never find out what
just-
happens. Do you remember what I was saying about all the pictures that they put around the school? She just said, I didn't do it, but I'm happy that whoever did it, I'm happy that they did it.
What pictures are they?
The whole plot of this book, he's trans. And he's got private pictures on Instagram from before. And somebody hacked his Instagram and posted them around the school.
That's unnecessary.
And she just said, I didn't do it, but I'm happy that somebody did. Hello, welcome to the end of this video. I think this is probably the worst angle and lighting that we're gonna get for this month. Reason being, it is currently 3 a.m. on June 12th, but today's gonna be a busy day and I wanted to finish recording this before I went to bed so that I have time to edit and upload. I will admit, I do still have 30 pages left in the book. You can kind of see where it's going from the end. It's just gonna be wrapping up all of the things, so I didn't quite finish it just because I need to go to bed. I do work tomorrow, but I'll put in the description if anything happens and I have thoughts about it. So this is just gonna be just excluding the last 30 pages. If there's something major that happens, I'll update it down there. But overall, I really genuinely enjoyed this book a lot. I think there were some parts of the writing that got a little bit boring, like a little bit repetitive, but I love the representation. I related to so many of the characters. Right from the beginning, you're introduced to this friend group. Everybody feels like real people. They all have their own identities, and it's very much the interaction of a queer friend group where they're all dating each other and they're all going around. That is so real. My friend group in middle and high school, literally it was this one group of like 8 people, and there were so many relationships that went on just in that circle. I think the big theme, the big takeaway from this book is just don't judge people because you don't know what they're going through. Because while Felix may seem confident in his identity, he was questioning his gender throughout the whole book, and his friend Ezra seems pretty rich. His family has a lot of money, but he doesn't really know what he's doing. And at one point Felix calls him out for that and says, hey, you're super rich, you shouldn't have any problems. And he says, yeah, but I still don't really know anything. Like, I don't feel the love from my parents, I don't feel supported, I don't know what path I want to take. And even with Declan, who was so mean at first, and when you're first introduced to him, you see him as just this bad guy, but the more they talk, the more he realizes that Declan's just another guy, and he has his own family issues and his own identity issues that you never would have known if you just saw him as some guy in class. And that doesn't excuse his bad behavior, that doesn't make it okay that he was being cruel, but you have to remember that if people are acting a certain way, there's probably a reason for it. They might look like they have everything and that they have it all figured out. That's something else that Felix mentions. He says how older people probably have their identities completely figured out, and that's just never going to be true. People are always evolving and changing, and they're always searching for new ways to be truer to themselves. The communication between the friends, specifically between Ezra and Felix, was so unreal. If people talked like that in real life, there would be no problems ever. The dialogue was very much, it felt very forced, and it was a little bit annoying to read, but I think I said this earlier, where if you are going through something that the characters are going through, and then you're reading about their friend, accept them and say, hey, just let me know if you want to use different pronouns, or talking about politics and stuff and just saying, hey, here's how the world is and that's messed up. It's all really generic things that they were saying, but if you are existing in that space, it might feel really comforting to hear that, especially if it's the first time you're being introduced to that whole world. If you don't have a queer support system in your real life and this is your first introduction to a friend group that's like that, I think it would be really comforting to read. I think her name is Leah, the one that's helping to hack into phones to figure out who did the posting. Even when this friend group is falling apart and people are being revealed to be not the greatest, the ones that are sticking together and defending each other are just so special. And it really represents a great side of the queer community of how people have to stick together when people are choosing to be hateful. One of the things that was boring to me is that there are a lot of things that are said that are very repetitive. So stuff like where Felix is saying that he's dreading the delayed responses from this anonymous DM person. There are a couple times where he points out that Ezra isn't afraid to just keep direct eye contact and he's uncomfortable with the long stares. Just stuff like that where it was little details that were almost said in the exact same wording multiple times. And it's the type of thing that you don't really need to hear multiple times to understand. Like being scared that somebody isn't gonna text you back because you were too forward. That's not something that's uncommon. That's not something that you need to really emphasize. I'm pretty sure most people can relate to that feeling. I said that I relate to Felix in the realm of creation and just the way that he thinks about it, because he's working so hard to get a degree or to get a scholarship to try and prove that the type of person that he is, being black and queer and trans and all of these labels, he's still able to be successful and he's trying to prove something, but he's also not putting his full effort into his artwork. He's just kind of hoping that it works out. I'm very much the same way with my music, where I really wish that something good would happen with it, but I'm just not putting the effort in to get there, because it's hard to do that. And to put your full self into your art is to be extremely vulnerable, because if it doesn't work out, then you have nothing else to give. This book is hyping me up for a Declan McKenna concert that I'm going to see in 2 days, because obviously one of the main characters' names is Declan, and every time I was reading that, I was just thinking about the concert, which I keep forgetting that I'm about to go to. I think I'm gonna skip a reading vlog the day after that, and I'm just gonna post a concert vlog instead. It was really interesting to me. This is something that I called out in the past couple of books. With Radio Silence, it moved really quickly into the description that was on the back of the book, but with One Last Stop, you didn't find out that she's stuck on the train until 20% through, and because that was on the back of the book, it felt really slow. With this, it mentions a love triangle on the back of the book, but you don't get it until 250 pages in. You don't get it until you're 2/3 through the book. Because Felix and Ezra are best friends. Ezra and Declan had dated in the past, but they broke up and they're both kind of upset at each other for the breakup. And then Declan and Felix have this online interaction. So between the three of them, there's a little triangle, and it doesn't come up until you're that far into the book when Declan is saying that he's self-conscious because Ezra likes Felix and that's why they broke up. But I wasn't waiting for that to happen. I wasn't looking for it. I was just kind of enjoying the book and seeing where it was going. Felix's accidental post on his anonymous account that gave away his identity, that hurt my heart because that's such a genuine fear of mine. I am always checking because I have multiple accounts for everything that I do. I always check so many times to make sure that I'm posting on the right account. I just imagine how devastating that would be to have an anonymous account and have this whole thing set up and then have it mess up just because you weren't thinking. But at the same time, you shouldn't be anonymously texting somebody and getting them emotionally vulnerable and lying to them. And then the last thing that I wrote in my notes is I genuinely cannot put this book down. I'm having such a good time because the family relationship and the friendships and the actual romantic relationships, they're all developed so well. So for all of them, you care how they end. It's very clear how Felix and his dad and Felix and his mom and Felix and his best friend and his relationship, everything is very clearly defined. You get to see a starting point and you get to see how it progresses, so it matters how it ends. You want to know, is his mom going to respond to the email? You want to know, is his dad going to use his correct name? Is he going to end up staying friends with Ezra? Is he going to get together with Declan? These are all things that you should care about because they're all consistently brought up. It actually keeps you interested in all of those different interactions. But like I said, it is 3 a.m. I've been reading for many hours. I really wanted to finish tonight, but I need sleep. But if I didn't have work tomorrow, genuinely, I would stay up and finish this book because I was just having such a good time. I didn't want to put it down. I don't think it's a full 5 stars just because, like I was saying, the repetitive conversations. I think the representation in this is beautiful. It so accurately displays such a specific experience that most people can't relate to. Like, this is a lot of very specific identities all layered on top of each other. And obviously, I can't relate directly to what this character is feeling because he's a black queer man in New York, but from what I can relate to, I think it was done really well. And I am so grateful to Kacen Callender for putting out this story because especially for young people, seeing a queer person who is solid in their identity but then goes back to questioning, it's kind of put out that once you transition and once you make that change in your life, you have to stick with it. So to put out a story where at the beginning he's super confident and then over time he's searching for a new label, I think that is so important for kids to see. With all that being said, I'm gonna go. I need sleep right now. I think I'd give this book a solid 4.5 stars. I think the representation was great. I think the storyline was great. If you guys didn't know, I am posting content related to queer authors for all of June, so if you would like to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to this channel or my main channel, Riverbxnd, where I'm posting music content, or my Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads, Storygraph, and Spotify, which I will link in the description. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Good night, my friends. I'll see you tomorrow.